to Shitcase Cinema.
Ator and Sonia.
So this is Ator, a 1982 low-budget Italian-made piece of cinematic gold. Now the original title was this, and when translated means Ator the Invincible. Now Ator is played by the legend that is Miles O'Keefe, or careful, I don't know how I pronounce it. That's how much of a legend he is. What, you never heard of him? Nah, neither have I. You know what other movie came out in 1982 and was vaguely similar? Conan the Barbarian, yeah. I just thought, this movie was released in the USA as Ator the Fighting Eagle. He's not even a bird of prey, so he doesn't even hold water, but whatever, it's the least of this movie's problems. So now that we're up to speed, let's get a move on with the story, and man alive, is it a familiar story, but I'll get to that later on. So the film starts out with a voiceover telling us about this great guy called Torrent who tries to fight some spider people, but he dies and he has a son to carry on his work.
The kingdom of the spider shall last 1,000 years, and the people shall suffer 1,000 years.
Brilliant. We're only 30 seconds in and I'm starting to know what suffering feels like. It's going to be a long slog through this film. So meet our main man called Ator, who's sitting around contemplating his career choice, no doubt, when Sonia pops up and he gives her a little bear cub that he found randomly in the woods when he was out strolling.
Here, got your present.
Look at her reaction, she didn't even care. It's just like, if someone got me a bear cub, I'd be like, oh wow, that is amazing, but she's just like, yeah, just another normal day.
Why can't we marry?
Ator, we are brother and sister.
And what's our man say to that?
I'll talk with our father.
Are you mental? Turns out that they're not brother and sister after all, which makes Ator super happy knowing that incest isn't a problem, but I don't think he was honestly bothered either way.
Ator, you don't know how really happy you make me.
Well, then you're saying you'd allow me to marry my sister?
She is not your sister.
So anyway, the big day is ruined by the evil spider god and his henchmen, which kind of reminds me of that Arnold Schwarzenegger classic Conan the Barbarian a bit. But only a bit. So Ator the Useless is knocked out, Sonia is kidnapped, and everybody else dies, but at least the bad guys allowed the bear to live, so they're not all that bad, are they? Now Ator gets found and trained up by this guy, Grieber, probably because he's got nothing better to do, and he rocks an awesome tash and wicked cheap wig. And when he's not kicking the shit out of our main man, he sends Ator to get a sword. Apparently it used to be his old man's, which I guess gives him some kind of power. Maybe. I don't know, I'm just making it up. But I don't think Ator knows because he just looks completely confused in every scene he's in. Look at his face! Moving on, if you want your bad guy in the movie to come across as super menacing, then just put a spider on his head. Yeah, this is the leader of the spider cult, and he sits around with spiders on his head just because. I mean, if you were the hero, would you take him out, or would you be scared? I would. I'd be like, fuck that guy's got a spider on his head. Somebody else sort him out. I've got better things to do. I'm busy, I'm washing my hair or something. So he gives a speech to his army in his kingdom, which consists of exactly 10 soldiers. It's not quite the same, but it did kind of remind me of Arnie's classic Conan the Barbarian a bit. But just a bit.
It is not the prophet, but the spider who decides the course of destiny.
Long life to the spider!
I'm speechless. I mean, you think it's a joke, but it's not. I suppose it's no different from Tulsa Doom in Conan with his snakes, but these goons just worship spiders instead. And then put them on their heads as well. Next, our main man Ator gets ambushed by a group of women, and for whatever reason, they keep him prisoner while fighting each other to see who can claim him as theirs. It's very random, but Ator isn't having any of it. No. And when the winner, called Rune, wants her away with him, he says this.
Are you ready to perform the duty that is my right?
Well, no.
She accepts that, and then they just decide to flee the camp together because our main man will be killed if they stay. Funnily enough, she was actually the one who was meant to kill him. She was meant to bed him, then kill him. But she's getting neither of these now, and she just decides to run away with him because, I mean, look at his pretty boy face. How can you turn that down? It looks like a singer from an 80s band like Europe or something. So anyway, they come across a cave where a mystery lady lives, so Ator is lazing around kissing and cuddling the mystery lady when suddenly his bear runs in and it sounds like a pig for whatever reason.
Get out of here!
I'm no expert on bears, but I'm sure as hell they don't sound like little pigs. I might be wrong, I don't know. Maybe shitty low-budget Italian-made movies know exactly what a bear cub sounds like. I mean, who am I to question this film's integrity and accuracy? Now, you know how most women, and I say most, not all, okay, so you can't have a go at me, they like to stare at themselves in mirrors endlessly? Well, this one doesn't, because when she sees herself in a mirror, she turns into something, alright? I don't know what it is, and I don't know what I'm looking at, but it looks like they just slapped a lot of wet newspaper onto her face.
Come quickly! Escape when you
You'll
can!
pay for this, Ator. I shall be avenged.
So, what's next for our hero? How about having a pathetic sword fight with a shadow? Yeah, that'll do, and he almost loses before Rune kills the light, so no more shadow monster. It's a good job he's got people to help him out because he's absolutely useless. Then they go into another cave, and this is where there's a group of blind blacksmiths hard at work, and they instantly have a fight for no reason whatsoever. Look at that, Ator's magic sword goes straight through people and doesn't get any blood on it. Amazing. Oh, and he finds a magic shield in there, which I guess is important to the so-called story. I'm confused though, because shortly before this, Rune tells him to rub some stinky leaves on himself, as it'll stop the blacksmiths from smelling them.
We'll have to pass through the caverns of the blind warriors. They have a highly developed sense of smell, so rub these leaves on your skin, and they won't be able to detect us.
Well, it clearly doesn't work. Fucking liar. You're just making our main man walk into trouble every chance you can get, I reckon, so we'll see what happens in the next random encounter. Seriously, the plot doesn't seem to exist very much, it's just walk to another location and have another fight, walk to another location, have another fight, etc, etc. I love it, so don't complain. Surprise, surprise, onto another cave, and now he's invading Spider-Man's kingdom.
Welcome, Ator.
Well, that seemed quite easy to get there, but now we're treated to a wooden battle with a gigantic army, and then it's the big showdown with the man himself, the Spider-Man, and it's a complete anticlimax. Does he chop his head off like at the end of Conan? Well, no, but don't worry, because it's way cooler actually, because just as our useless hero is about to die, his shield, his magic shield that he found, oh yeah, how convenient, shoots Spider-Man with light and he explodes. Why? No idea, don't worry about it, it just doesn't make any sense, it's as simple as that. But it's not over folks, because when our hero finds his lovely Sonya caught up in a web, Ator's trainer pops up looking just as evil as a bad guy, and you know what? He is a bad guy! It's like I always say, a true villain has a killer tash.
But it was you who guided me to this place.
In order to regain my rightful place, and only to return to what I have always been, the High Priest of the Spider.
Bosh, look at that, he can't even see because his wig's covering his eyes. This is amazing. So our hero naturally wins and leaves the bad guy caught up screaming to himself.
Ator, take me away from here.
First, I must complete what I was born to do.
Which means he's got to now face off against a giant spider. Oh yeah, a giant spider, which is the best thing about this film. Kind of reminds me a bit of a scene in Conan where he kills a giant snake, but only a bit. So Ator shines his shield at the spider for a lifetime, and all I can come up with is he thinks he's got a magnifying glass and he's trying to burn the spider to death using the sunlight. It takes him a lifetime to walk up these stairs to get up to the spider. I mean, I could literally feel myself aging just watching this. It's painful. So he manages to kill the giant puppet by stabbing it a few times, and that's it. There you go. Ator, a 1982 comedy classic for the ages. And they just run off holding hands. Kind of brings a tear to the eye, really. Now here's my top 5 random bullshit moments. Number 1, the bad guys somehow knew that Torrent had a son because, well, just check this out.
Earth trembles like a virgin being drawn to the nuptial bed, while the sky is the color of flame, my lord.
Can Torrent have had a son?
Master, we cannot be certain yet.
Priceless stuff. I don't even know what he's talking about, but I guess it makes perfect sense. Number 2, if you like dancing, then you'll be over the moon because you have to endure a lengthy dance sequence straight out of Lord of the Dance. Our main man looks like he's having a blast. He's got as many face expressions as Steven Seagal, I'm not even kidding. Number 3, Ator has a tattoo that others somehow know means he's the son of Torrent. Yet our thick bastard hero doesn't have a clue.
The son of Torrent. I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me?
Even I didn't know about it until a little while ago.
Number 4, giant spiders make their webs out of rope. Number 5, Root fights off some henchmen and ends up dying in our main man's arms. Kind of reminds me a bit of a scene in Conan, but only a bit. And here's a bonus one for you. The Spider Kingdom blows up and lava explodes everywhere. Why? No idea, but I think it was just some stock footage that they had and they wanted to use it at the very end. Good, well done, give yourself a pat on the back, because I think it makes this film 10 times more supreme, so thanks for the stock footage of lava exploding everywhere. It's an obvious exploitation film that clearly wanted some of that money that Conan had brought in the same year. But, I mean, what I want to really see, though, is a crossover. Conan versus Ator, you know, in the same vein as Freddy versus Jason or Alien versus Predator. Except this will be far better. Seriously, can you imagine how monumentally piss poor it would be? It would be comedy gold. It would win every award possible. I mean, that's a given. Hell, they would have to rename the Oscars to the Ators because no other film would ever win an award. Like, ever, okay? Then they could branch out into books and musicals and toys and clothes. They could do sequels and prequels and remakes and reboots like every year without fail. It would be fantastic. People would even name their newborn babies, whether it's a boy or a girl, Ator or Conan, and people would dress up like Ator and his friends and have parties. It would be fantastic, and the world would be such a better place. But this is only possible if they make Conan versus Ator. That's what I think, anyway. Oh, and this film sucks, by the way. It's not as good as Conan. So I'm going to give it 2 out of 10.